Commander Eunice stared at the flickering holographic display as another desperate message burst through the static. Her large dark eyes reflected the blue glow of the emergency transmission, while her webbed fingers hovered uncertainly over the response controls. "Please, anyone who can hear this," the alien voice cracked with pure terror. "The Vax have found us. They're tearing our ship apart section by section. We have children aboard, researchers who've never seen violence. We need help. We need—" The transmission cut to horrifying silence. Yuna's breathing quickened as she processed what she'd just heard. The Starlight Hope was a well-known research vessel in this sector, carrying scientists from 12 different peaceful species. Now, they were being hunted by the most brutal raiders in known space. Her communication officer, a young Zephyr named Kira, looked up from her station with wide, frightened eyes. "Commander, what do we do? Our exploration ships have no weapons. We don't even have defensive shields." The research station around them hummed quietly with the sounds of peaceful scientific work. Libraries full of collected knowledge, laboratories where alien botanists studied plant samples, medical bays designed only for healing. This was a place built by species who had forgotten that monsters existed in the dark. Between stars, another transmission burst through the speakers. This time, it was visual. The screen showed the interior of the Starlight Hope, and it was chaos. Smoke filled the corridors, while terrified aliens ran for escape pods. In the background, the sound of tearing metal echoed as something powerful ripped through the hull. "Day 7 of the attack," gasped Dr. Wren, the ship's chief scientist. "The Vax are playing with us. They could have destroyed us instantly, but they prefer to hunt. They're boarding us floor by floor, taking prisoners for their slave markets. If anyone receives this transmission, tell our families we tried to run." Yuna's hands shook as she reached for the emergency response protocols. Her people, the Zephyrians, had lived in peace for over 3,000 years. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that violence was never the answer. They had no military, no weapons, no concept of warfare beyond ancient historical texts. But as she watched innocent beings die on her screen, Commander Yuna realized that sometimes peace wasn't enough. Sometimes the universe demanded action that her people simply couldn't provide. The weight of helplessness pressed down on her shoulders as she made the hardest decision of her life. Commander Yuna's fingers hesitated over the forbidden control panel. The red warning lights blinked urgently, reminding her that what she was about to do violated every law the Galactic Council had established. These restricted frequencies were sealed away for good reason. They connected to the most dangerous beings in known space. "Commander, you can't," whispered Kira, her voice barely audible. "The Council banned contact with the Deathworlders for our own protection. They're savages who solve everything with violence." Yuna watched another section of the Starlight Hope explode on her screen. Innocent researchers were dying while she worried about breaking rules. Her webbed hand slammed down on the emergency broadcast button. "This is Commander Yuna, of Zephyrian Research Station Alpha 7. She spoke into the Forbidden Channel. We have a civilian vessel under attack by Vax raiders. Coordinates are attached. Anyone who can help, please respond." The message shot out into space at light speed, bouncing from one relay station to another. It traveled through sectors that civilized species avoided. Through regions marked as dangerous, do not enter on every star map, thousands of light years away. Lieutenant Jinwoo was drinking coffee during his night shift at Earth Defense Monitoring Station 12. The young human officer nearly choked on his drink when the alien distress signal came through his headset. "What the hell?" he muttered, adjusting his equipment. The translation software worked overtime to convert the alien language into Korean, then English. As the meaning became clear, Jinwoo's relaxed expression hardened into something deadly serious. He'd heard stories about the peaceful aliens who lived in the galaxy's core sectors, being so gentle they couldn't even imagine warfare. And now they were calling for help on frequencies they weren't supposed to know existed. Jinwoo's training kicked in. Within 30 seconds, he had forwarded the transmission to Admiral Hunwoo, aboard the battleship Thunder. The Admiral was known throughout the Earth Defense Fleet as a man who never hesitated when civilians were in danger. The Thunder was currently on patrol near the Outer Rim, hunting pirates who had been raiding human cargo ships. It was a massive vessel, built for war and crewed by soldiers who had grown up fighting. Every human aboard had been shaped by their species, violent history, and their homeworld's endless dangers. When Admiral Hunwoo received the alien distress call, he was studying tactical reports in his command center. The graying officer looked up from his holographic displays as his communication officer approached. "Sir, we've got something unusual," the young ensign reported. "An alien SOS on the restricted frequencies. They're asking for help against raiders." The Admiral's weathered face showed no emotion as he listened to the desperate plea from Commander Yuna, but his crew noticed his jaw tighten with determination. Admiral Hunwoo stood up from his command chair, his decision already made before the alien transmission finished playing. Around him, the bridge of the Thunder hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew waited for orders. All ships change course immediately, he commanded into his communication headset. Set heading for these coordinates. Maximum burn on the fusion drives. The response was instant. 6 human warships turned as one, their powerful engines blazing like miniature stars against the black of space. The Thunder led the formation, followed by destroyers Wildfire and Tempest, the cruiser Iron Wolf, and frigates Hawk and Viper. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built not for exploration or science, but for one purpose: winning battles. Captain Minsu's voice crackled through the fleet communication system from the Wildfire. "Admiral, running full weapon diagnostics now. All missile tubes are loaded and ready. Point defense systems are online." "Excellent," Hunwoo replied, watching the tactical displays light up with weapon readouts. Unlike the peaceful aliens who had sent the distress call, humans understood that good intentions meant nothing without the power to act on them. Commander Yunbi worked frantically at her navigation station, calculating the fastest route to the attack site. Her fingers flew over the holographic controls as she plotted intercept courses that would bring the human fleet within striking distance of the raiders. "Sir, at maximum burn, will arrive in 14 hours, she reported. "I'm pushing the engines. Harder than recommended, but we can take it." The Admiral nodded grimly. 14 hours might be too long, but it was the best they could do. Around him, the Thunder's crew moved with practiced urgency, each person knowing exactly what needed to be done. In the weapon bays, human Marines checked their armor and equipment. These weren't scientists or diplomats, they were soldiers who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. Earth had forged them in conflict, from the harsh radiation storms of their homeworld to the gang wars in the outer colonies. Lieutenant Soyoung ran combat simulations on the main computer, trying to predict what they might face. The Vax Raiders were known for their brutality, but they had never fought humans before. That might give the Earth fleet an advantage. "All crews report ready for combat operations," announced the ship's tactical officer. Throughout the fleet, similar reports came in. Weapon systems armed, shields at full power, fighter squadrons prepped for launch. Admiral Hunwoo looked out at the stars rushing past his view screen. Somewhere out there, innocent beings were dying while calling for help. The galaxy's peaceful. Species might not understand violence, but humanity had mastered it through necessity. The hunt was on, and the predators had just become prey. The moment the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, every alarm on the Zephyrian research station began screaming. Commander Yuna rushed to her observation deck and froze at what she saw through the reinforced windows. 6 massive ships hung in space, like predators made of metal and fire. Unlike the smooth, curved designs of peaceful alien vessels, these human warships were all sharp angles and brutal efficiency. Weapon barrels jutted from their holes like fangs, and their dark armor seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Commander," Kira's voice shook with terror. "Those aren't rescue ships. Those are instruments of war." Yuna had never seen anything so frightening in her life. The largest ship, the Thunder, was easily 3 times the size of her research station. Strange symbols were painted on its hull, human writing that her computer couldn't translate. But she didn't need translation to understand the message. These were killing machines. Her communication system crackled to life, and a deep male voice spoke in accented galactic standard, "Cephrean Station. This is Admiral Hunwoo of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call." Yuna's webbed hands trembled as she activated her translator and responded. "Admiral, we are grateful for your response. The situation requires careful diplomatic intervention. Perhaps we could arrange aggressive negotiations with the raiders to secure the safe release of negative." The human voice cut her off with startling bluntness. "We don't negotiate with raiders. We negotiate with come to kill your enemies." The words hit Yuna like a physical blow. Her translator had to run the phrase 3 times before she could process what the human had actually said. Kill, not capture, not negotiate, not find a peaceful solution. Kill. I'm not sure I understand," she stammered. "Surely there must be non-violent options we could explore. The Galactic Council always recommends... Admiral Hyanwoo's image appeared on her main screen, and Yuna gasped. The human looked exactly like the stories described, a being shaped by violence. His face was scarred, his eyes hard as stone, and his gray hair spoke of countless battles survived. When he smiled, it wasn't reassuring. It was the expression of a predator who had found prey. "Commander Yuna, your people called for help," he said in that same matter-of-fact tone. "The Vax raiders are torturing innocent beings. We're going to stop them permanently." Around the research station, Yuna's crew watched in horrified fascination as the human ships began moving into attack formation. There was no hesitation, no committee meetings, no lengthy discussions about the moral implications of violence. These Deathworlders had received a call for help, and their response was simple and terrifying. They had come to make war. "Commander?" Yuna watched in stunned silence as the human fleet transformed before her eyes. What had seemed like 6 separate ships suddenly became something far more terrifying. A coordinated hunting pack. Captain Minsu's destroyer, Wildfire, peeled away from the main formation, its engines flaring bright blue as it accelerated toward the outer system. The Tempest followed, taking a different vector entirely. Within minutes, the human ships had spread across thousands of kilometers of space, each one moving with deadly purpose. "What are they doing?" whispered Kira, her voice barely audible over the hum of the research station's computers. Yuna had no answer. In all her years of diplomatic training, she had studied the tactics of every known civilized species. When faced with raiders, the standard approach was to open communication channels, attempt to understand their demands, and find a peaceful resolution. But these humans were doing something completely different. Lieutenant Soyang's voice came through the communication channel. Calm and professional. "Admiral, I've detected the Vax fleet. They're hiding in the asteroid field near the gas giant. Looks like they're using the rocks as cover while they finish stripping the research vessel." "How did you find them so quickly?" Admiral Hunwoo asked. "I ran a thermal scan for recent engine burns, cross-referenced it with gravitational disturbances, and tracked their exhaust signatures through the debris field," Soyang explained matter-of-factly. "Classic ambush position, but they left a trail." Yuna's translator struggled with the technical terms, but the implications were clear. The humans had located the raiders in less than an hour, using methods that seemed impossibly direct. No negotiations, no attempts to make contact. They had simply hunted their enemies like predators tracking prey. "Confirmed," Captain Minsu reported from the Wildfire. "Visual contact with the Vax fleet. 7 ships, heavily armed. They're using the civilian vessel as a shield. Admiral Hyan Wu's response sent chills through every alien listening. Standard hunter-killer formation. Minsu, take your destroyers around the far side of the asteroid field. Yunbi, position the cruiser to block their escape route. When I give the signal, we hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. The watching Zephyrians realized they were witnessing something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. These humans weren't trying to rescue the hostages through careful negotiation. They were preparing to attack a superior force using tactics that seemed designed for maximum destruction. But the prisoners, Yuna transmitted desperately. The innocent beings aboard the research vessel. We'll get them out, Admiral Hyan Wu replied with absolute certainty. After we eliminate the threat, the human ships moved into position with mechanical precision, each one a piece in a deadly puzzle that the galaxy's peaceful species couldn't comprehend. They weren't just responding to the crisis, they were ending it. The first human missiles struck without warning, turning a Vax raider ship into a ball of expanding plasma. Commander Yuna jerked back from her observation screen as the brilliant explosion lit up space like a newborn star. Attack pattern, Alpha 7. All ships engage. Admiral Hyan Wu's voice cut through the communication channel with ice-cold precision. What happened next defied everything the watching aliens thought they knew about space combat. The human fleet moved like a single living organism, each ship playing its part in a deadly dance that had been practiced 1,000 times before. Captain Minsu's destroyers came screaming out of the asteroid field, their missile tubes launching salvo after salvo of guided warheads. The Vax raiders, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond, but their ships, designed for terrorizing defenseless civilians, suddenly seemed clumsy and slow against opponents who fought back. Direct hit on their flagship, Lieutenant Soyang reported, her voice steady, despite the chaos erupting around them. Their command structure is breaking down. Commander UMB's fighter squadron burst from the Thunder's launch bays like angry wasps. The small, agile craft dove between the larger ships, their weapons targeting the Vax vessel's engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. Each pilot flew with the kind of skill that came from years of training in Earth's brutal combat simulators. The Vax tried to use the captured research vessel as a shield, positioning the helpless civilian ship between themselves and the human attackers. It was a move that had worked against peaceful species for decades. No civilized race would risk harming innocents. But these weren't civilized beings. These were humans. Yunbei, can your fighters get a clear shot at their docking clamps? Admiral, Yunwu asked. Affirmative, sir. Give me 30 seconds. Commander Yuna watched in stunned disbelief as the human fighters performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. They danced through enemy fire, using the asteroids as cover, while targeting specific points on the raider ships with pinpoint accuracy. A series of small explosions marked the destruction of the docking clamps holding the research vessel, the moment the civilian ship was free. The Thunder's massive guns opened fire with devastating effect. The Vax flagship simply disappeared, vaporized by weapons that unleashed the power of a small sun. 2 more raider ships tried to flee, but Captain Minsu's destroyers were waiting. Their missiles found their targets with mechanical precision, leaving nothing but debris and fading energy signatures. In less than 15 minutes, 7 Vax raider ships had been reduced to scrap metal. The fleet that had terrorized the galaxy's peaceful species for decades was gone, destroyed by beings who understood that sometimes violence was the only language predators understood. The silence that followed was deafening. The docking tube connected to the research vessel with a metallic clang that echoed through the Thunder's hull. Marine Captain Junho checked his armor systems one final time as his team prepared for boarding. 24 Marines stood ready, their weapons and equipment looking nothing like anything the galaxy had ever seen. Remember, we've got civilians. Scattered throughout the ship, Junho spoke into his helmet. The Vax have been hunting them for sport. Expect booby traps and ambush points. The airlock hissed open, and the Marines moved into the damaged research vessel with practiced precision. The interior was a nightmare of twisted metal and emergency lighting. Smoke filled the corridors while the sound of distant screaming echoed through the ventilation systems. Dr. Wren, the alien scientist who had sent the original distress call, cowered behind an overturned lab table as heavy footsteps approached. He expected to see more Vax raiders coming to drag him away. Instead, a figure in strange black armor appeared around the corner. "Are you injured?" Captain Junho asked, in accented Galactic Standard, his voice coming through external speakers on his helmet. Dr. Wren stared up at the human Marine with wide, terrified eyes. The soldier was massive compared to his own delicate frame, covered in armor that seemed designed for war rather than exploration. Strange symbols covered the human's equipment writing that looked aggressive even without translation. "You single quotes re. You're here to rescue us," the alien scientist whispered. "That's the plan," Junho replied, helping the elderly being to his feet. "Stay behind me and do exactly what I say." The Marine team moved through the ship like ghosts, their training evident in every step. They used hand signals that the watching aliens couldn't understand, coordinated movements that spoke of years spent learning how to fight in close quarters. A group of Vax raiders appeared at the end of the corridor, their crude weapons raised. The aliens who had terrorized peaceful species for decades suddenly found themselves facing soldiers who had been bred for war. The firefight lasted exactly 7 seconds. When the smoke cleared, the Vax lay motionless while the human Marines continued forward without missing a step. Their weapons technology made the savage raiders look like children playing with toys. Marine Corporal Doyan took a plasma bolt to his shoulder while covering a group of rescued alien children. He grimaced in pain but kept fighting, his armor's medical systems already treating the wound. "Doyan's hit," reported Sergeant Minho over the comm channel. "Can you continue?" Captain Junho asked. "Just a scratch, sir. These kids need to get out of here." Dr. Wren watched in amazement as the wounded human soldier continued to shield the young aliens with his own body. These beings, these Deathworlders, that the galaxy feared, were risking their lives for strangers they had never met. By the time the rescue was complete, 12 more Marines had been wounded, saving alien civilians. Not one had hesitated. The rescued aliens gathered in the research station's main conference room, their faces still showing shock from what they had witnessed. Commander Yuna sat across from Admiral Heinwu, trying to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. "I don't understand," Dr. Wren said quietly, his webbed hand still trembling. "You destroyed 7 ships without any attempt at negotiation. In our culture, violence is always the last option. After all, diplomatic solutions have been exhausted." Admiral Heinwu leaned back in his chair, his weathered face showing no emotion. "Doctor, those raiders had already made their choice when they started torturing civilians. Negotiation was never an option." The alien scientist's translator struggled with the concept. "But surely there could have been a peaceful resolution, perhaps offering them compensation, or finding out what they truly wanted." "They wanted to kill innocent beings for profit," Captain Minsu interjected from his position near the wall. "Some problems can only be solved with superior firepower." Commander Yuna felt her world shifting beneath her feet. Everything her people believed about conflict resolution seemed naive and childish compared to the brutal efficiency she had just witnessed. "Your Marines were wounded saving our people," she said slowly. "Doesn't your military doctrine account for preserving your own soldiers' lives?" "We call them acceptable casualties," Admiral Heinwu replied matter-of-factly. "When innocent lives are at stake, we accept that some of our people might be hurt or killed. That's what soldiers do." The phrase hit the aliens like a physical blow. Acceptable casualties. The idea that beings would willingly risk death for strangers was completely foreign to their peaceful mindset. Dr. Wren leaned forward, his large eyes wide with confusion. But how do you decide when violence is necessary? Surely there must be committees, lengthy debates, ethical reviews. Lieutenant Soyang looked up from her datapad. Sir, should I explain our preemptive strike doctrine? No need, the Admiral said, noting the horrified expressions on the aliens' faces. They're already struggling with reactive warfare. Commander Yuna realized she was seeing something that terrified and fascinated her in equal measure. These humans didn't just use violence as a tool, they had perfected it into a science. Every weapon, every tactic, every decision was designed around the concept of winning through superior force. Your entire species thinks like this? She asked quietly. Admiral Hyanwu nodded. We've had to. Our homeworld tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We fought ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and each other. Violence isn't just something we understand, it's bred into our bones. The room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this revelation. They had called for help from beings they feared, and now they understood why the galaxy kept humans at arm's length. These weren't just Deathworlders because of their harsh planet. They were warriors by nature, shaped by evolution into perfect instruments of controlled destruction. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Within days, every civilized world knew the story of how the feared Deathworlders had answered an alien distress call and destroyed an entire Vax Raider fleet in minutes on the peaceful world of Centauri Prime. Ambassador Kale watched the combat footage with growing amazement. The holographic displays showed human ships moving with deadly precision, their weapons turning the galaxy's most feared pirates into space debris. Send a message to Earth, he told his aide. We need to talk. Similar conversations were happening on 1,000 different worlds. Species that had spent centuries avoiding contact with humanity suddenly found themselves reconsidering their position. The beings they had dismissed as violent savages might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Admiral Hunwu was reviewing damage reports aboard the Thunder when Lieutenant Jinwu approached with a communication pad. Sir, you're not going to believe this. We just received a formal invitation from the Galactic Council. The Admiral raised an eyebrow. The same council that classified us as too dangerous for contact. Yes, sir. They want you to address their emergency session next week. Something about reevaluating humanity's role in galactic security. Captain Minsu laughed from his position at the tactical station. Funny how their tune changes when they need someone to do the dirty work. But Admiral Hunwu wasn't laughing. He understood what this invitation really meant. The galaxy's peaceful species had finally realized that good intentions weren't enough to stop predators like the Vax. They needed guardians who understood violence, beings who could make the hard choices that civilized societies couldn't stomach. Back on Earth, President Taeyang convened an emergency cabinet meeting. The rescued aliens had sent detailed reports about the human rescue operation, and the political implications were staggering. They want us to be their military defense minister, Seokjin observed, reading through the diplomatic messages flooding in from across the galaxy. Every peaceful species is suddenly very interested in forming security partnerships with humanity. The president stared out at the city beyond his office window. Earth had spent centuries building a civilization based on controlled aggression and strategic thinking. Now the galaxy wanted them to export that expertise. Admiral Hyanwu's response to the council's invitation was simple and direct. He would attend their session, but humanity would set the terms of any partnership. They weren't interested in becoming the galaxy's hired guns. If the peaceful species wanted protection, they would have to accept that sometimes violence was the only language that predators understood. The universe had found its guardians, and they came with their own rules. The age of pure pacifism was ending, replaced by a new reality where those who could fight protected those who wouldn't. The galaxy would never be the same,